Hello, Tar Heel Nation. Welcome to another UNC Hoops Talk podcast. This is your host, Dan DeWitt. I got Gil and Blake is fashionably late as usual, but it's so good to have you guys here, and it is so good to be talking to you guys under these circumstances. So, if you guys have been following the podcast, you heard, saw whatever it is that I was out of town last week. Blake and Gil covered the ACC tournament. We couldn't quite get them to get a preview podcast up, but maybe that's good luck. I don't know. We'll see here. But Tar Heels with a blowout win in the first round. Epic game. We'll leave it at that. Epic in many ways, I think, in the second round here against Baylor. We'll get into that stuff. I guess how you guys doing, all that good stuff. But let's kind of cover the first game really quickly. I didn't see really any of it, and I didn't even turn it on because it was such a blowout, and I didn't feel like I need to. But what do we need to cover out of that first round game against Marquette? Gil, you want to start us off?
I would say it's a combination of the two games, and obviously we're going to talk a lot about the one that took place today. Epic is the right word, I would say, but a pretty dominant Carolina team, looking really comfortable offensively when they have all of their Iron Five players on the court. So a really strong showing from the Tar Heels in Fort Worth in two games. Obviously, there's plenty to digest and dissect in the last 10 minutes of what took place today against Baylor. But on to the Sweet 16 for the first time since 2017, if I'm not mistaken. So, or actually, no, the 2019 team with Cam Johnson. Then my apologies. But anyway, it feels sweet for sure to get back to the Sweet 16. And against Marquette, we came out, we dominated. There was a long stretch where neither team scored there for a brief moment in the first half, and then we took an 11-0 run, I believe it was, and just never looked back. So that's a comfortable kind of win that you want to get in your first round game. We got an opportunity to sit some of our players and not push their minutes up too strong. And today we got our bench tested a little bit. But yeah, against Marquette, the biggest margin of victory in an 8-9 game. So we'll take that. And man, moving on, I'm excited to talk about all this with you guys here today.
Yeah, so historic win in the first round because, like you said, it was the largest margin of victory in an 8-9 game. So kind of Blake, same question. How did anything we need to cover in that first game? But I'll kind of add on. How did it make you? Did it worry you for the second round game with how dominant we were in the first game? Did you feel like there was going to be a letdown? Obviously, it's a 1 seed, so we should be up for it. But how did you feel after that first game, as well as anything else we need to cover in that Marquette game?
Yeah, I mean, I would understand if people were a little bit worried having such a dominant game, and then are they going to back it up with another one? Because we really haven't seen that consistency, right. And we've talked about it a lot this season. Even after the Duke game, it's like they came out and won their first game in the ACC tournament, but didn't look, incredibly good. So were we going to see two really good performances? And actually, this is the first time, I think, all season. I'll say against, should we call Marquette a quality opponent? I mean, they made the tournament. They're a tournament team.
I was going to say, it's only the
let's just for argument's sake say that this is the first time that they've played well 2 straight games against quality opponents. At least we can say against tournament opponents, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Now, having said that, a lot of things went wrong today, which I know we're going to get into. But I do think this is the first semblance of consistency where we can really say they're actually stringing together multiple, halves, multiple games even of consistent basketball where even when a player isn't necessarily scoring, he's doing other good things with the basketball. We're seeing guys like Brady Manick be consistently good.
Really good, really good. So
yeah, really good.
Marquette game, he went off for 28 points, 11 rebounds, 5 for 10 from the 3-point line. And you guys can kind of correct me on this, but I think it was Caleb Love that kind of went off early. He ended up with 23 points, 6 for 13 from the 3-point line. Maybe his best
21 in the
game.
First half.
Yeah, maybe his best shooting game, probably at least from the 3-point line. Baycott add another double-double to extend his season record of those, 17 and 10. Leaky Black, 7 rebounds, 8 assists to just 2 turnovers. RJ Davis did not shoot well, 1 for 10 overall, but 12 assists to 1 turnover. You want to see that from your point guard every night if you could. Even Puff Johnson got into it, 11 points. And I think Gil said it too, and especially now knowing the result tonight or today, I guess earlier today, and how, going into overtime and how strenuous this game was, probably a really good uh, thing that we had a blowout and we could kind of alleviate some of those minutes for a lot of those guys. They still, most of the starters played over 30 still, but they weren't strenuous minutes. There wasn't a lot of stress on the guys, and we weren't really worried about it. So probably a good thing that happened. So I guess we'll just move on. Anything else from the Marquette game that you think we need to cover? Obviously, everybody here is in the chat already talking about the game today. So is there anything else we need to say before we move on to the game against Baylor today? You guys both good?
It was a setup for what was to take place.
So yeah, obviously setting it up. Tar Heels came out strong. I think actually the only lead, because I heard Kenny Smith after the game, there was only one lead change. So I think actually Baylor scored the first 4, right? It was 4-0. And then we kind of came together after that and I mean, took them apart. I said for 3/4 of this game, we beat Baylor's brains in, and then the refs kind of beat our brains in the last 10 minutes of the game. And then the overtime, I felt like was called pretty fairly, and we ended up beating them, and they shot poorly. So we beat Baylor twice, and the refs kind of beat us for half of a half. So yeah, we're up 25 with 10 minutes left in the second half. Brady Manick had just hit a 3, and then we had given up a foul, or no, they had the ball. It was a rebound, right? We were defensive rebounding it, and Manick gets pushed in the back, reacts to it, elbow on his box out, and again, everybody knows this, but just to kind of go through it, gets the flagrant 2 foul, so he is ejected from the game. I think everybody kind of knew this is going to turn the game around, but how drastically and the start of what that came is just kind of unbelievable. And I won't run through everything play by play, or we'll be here all night because I'll get worked up all over again. But just stopping at that point. So Brady Manick gets ejected before anything happens. Like, what's going through your guys' mind? Blake, we'll let you go first.
I'm not upset about the flagrant 2. I think it could have gone either way, and I know people were, passionate about the fact that they thought it was a flagrant 1. I can't be that exuberant in my, defense of him only getting a flagrant 1, because I don't think Brady Manick has like an evil, mean, bone in his body. I don't take him as that kind of player at all. I do think that he was playing rough basketball with a guy that was playing questionably borderline dirty for most of the game. And I think that in a split second, even the cleanest of players can lose it. And the move that he made was not in any way, shape, or form a basketball move. It wasn't necessary to get the rebound. It wasn't necessary to protect the ball. And I think it was a mistake on his part. Now, is it something egregious where it would ever, come into like a suspension, conversation? No, of course not. Could it have been a flagrant 1 if it were a different referee or a different officiating crew? Absolutely. I think it could have been, but it was borderline enough. I'm not upset with it. Having said all that, did it change the game? Absolutely. But that wasn't the only factor. So at one point, I believe there was a stretch of 10 straight fouls called on North Carolina and 13 out of 14. Now, that's the stat I've seen. I have not gone back and checked it for myself, but that is staggering. The fact that Baylor had so many guys with like 4 fouls, and only one of them, I think, ended up fouling out, but Caleb Love managed to get himself fouled out. And all of a sudden it became this ticky-tack foul if you were a North Carolina player, but Baylor was playing incredibly rough, incredibly physical, and these guys aren't even fouling out. I think that is more what changed the game to the point where it got to overtime. Yeah, the Manick thing hurt because there were times where, and he was hot, and there were times where, the Tar Heels were driving it down, and Leaky was the open shooter in the corner where it would have been Manick prior to that. And then you don't even go to the corner. With respect to Leaky's improved shooting, it no longer becomes like a no-brainer, wide-open 3. Let's pass it to this guy. So I don't think it ever even gets close if Manick stays in the game. But even with him out of the game, if Love stays in the game, I think it's a comfortable win. I think it's 12, 14, 15 points, something like that. The main thing as time wound down was ball control, the ability to get out of full court pressure and to get the ball up court. And, at one point, there was one ball handler on the court. It was scary. It was Baycott, it was McCoy, it was Styles, and I believe
we had Puff for a little bit, Leaky for most of the time, but we did have
But
Puff.
there was one time where Leaky was off, and the only ball handler on the court was RJ. That was it.
Yep.
So it was getting very, very scary because you don't have Love. Even toward the end, RJ's got 4 fouls. Baycott's got 4 fouls. You're going into overtime, and you're kind of thinking like, wow. So we've got 2 players out of the game. Baycott's got 4 fouls. RJ picks up his 4th. It was scary. But I do think that there were a lot of missed foul calls. I think it was a horribly officiated game. And I think on a lot of that full court pressure, there were fouls that went uncalled.
Yeah. And so, and I'm going to get to you, Blake, Gil, right away here. And you say there's a lot of miss. I didn't think the game was horribly reffed up to that point. I think there was, I think they kind of let people get away on both sides to get to that point.
It was that final 10 minutes.
But then, once the ejection happened, I felt like then they really swallowed their whistle, and it was all Baylor being the aggressor. And we just, like you said, there was, and I haven't gone back to check either. I saw the stat that we fouled 13 out of the 14 fouls called were against us in that. But I think even from when Manic got ejected, I don't think we got a foul called in our favor until like a minute and a half left in the game. Like we went 9 minutes without getting a foul call for us. And and the way Baylor was playing, there's just no way
that they weren't
you don't call that foul.
Right.
I mean, they were being overly aggressive. They it's almost the end of the game where they're either saying call the foul or we're going to get the steal. Like that's what we're playing for.
Well, one specifically that really resonated with me was when Mayer was up at the midcourt line with Caleb Love, and Caleb Love got called for an over and back. It was a clear push. That should have been his 5th foul. Instead, it's a turnover on Love, and it's going the other direction. And then Love ends up fouling out. Unbelievable.
And I was say, and Love fouled out early in there was still 6 minutes left or something like that. I don't know exactly what it was. But that was obviously before that because it was against Caleb Love. Yeah. He would have been out way before that. So I'm getting fired up again just talking about it. But
I had blocked that one out of my memory because I slammed the couch so hard with my fist that my cats went spraying around. My wife told me to calm down, but I could not keep it calm at that particular moment because that was such an egregious miscall. Oh my God. Yeah. I intentionally wanted to come on here tonight to celebrate a colossal Carolina victory. That's the 9th time North Carolina has defeated a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. So I mostly want to celebrate that, but we would be remiss, of course, not to talk about the officiating for at least a little bit. So yeah, I feel like I want to get that out of my system. The 10-minute stretch there was just, I don't even know how you can try and justify how lopsided it was. I don't even know what else to say about it. That particular call, Blake, was so bad. I mean, I even saw neutral people. I haven't really been following, but I heard that the talking heads and pundits around the country have been saying, if they're even all in agreement, my goodness, it was bad, and it certainly contributed. But I do want to say that Baylor came out in that second half aggressive. They stepped up their intensity by all means, and yes, I agree with you, Dan, that they were, forcing, call foul on us, whatever. We're going to do whatever we can, and we're going to scrape, claw, swipe, no matter what, try and get this ball. And Carolina definitely fed into, it sped Carolina up after, Manic went out. They lost a little bit of their composure. Were there missed foul calls? Absolutely. Did Baylor step up their play? Absolutely. Did Carolina, start running too fast and play into the comeback? Yes. All those things contributed to, what ended up being an epic, collapse, to be honest with you. And thankfully they regrouped. And I, even as it was going on, I had this calm demeanor. I told you about this, when they were playing Louisville at home. In a game that they had to have, somehow they're going to find a way to win this, even though, it's just looking bad. It's looking bad. And I think everybody thought, when it went into overtime that, all the momentum is in Baylor's favor. They're going to surely pull this out now. There wasn't too much to think positive about what had happened, at that point. But I was like, somehow, some way, I think Carolina's going to find a way. And man, there's some huge shots. I can't wait to talk about that. So maybe I should just go into that. Everybody's talking about that 3 from Dontrez Styles, and by all means, that was a big time shot that really settled the team down. But I don't think what's getting enough credit is Leaky Black's play where he cut to the basket and Armando Bacot fouled him. The athleticism that he got up over Sosham, to get that layup in was, that was a big time play. And of course, then the RJ Davis left-handed layup and one. I let up like a cathartic yes when that play was made. Oh my goodness. All right, I'm gonna stop there for now because I know I've been talking a while.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're moving on here. You're a little more positive than I don't know that I'm ready to move on past everything that happened, but and I agree what you guys have said. Like the refs were horrible. I don't think they were even being like discreet about it. I don't get it. And like you, Gil, I went and purposely looked at like the national, college basketball guys because I wanted to take like my bias out of it. Like obviously I thought they were really bad. I thought it was pretty obvious, all this stuff. So I went and looked at Doug Gottlieb, Jeff Goodman, Matt Norlander, Borzello with ESPN, all these guys.
Pat Forty.
I didn't look at his. I think actually, yeah, I did see one of his as well. And every single one of them, same way as these refs are absolutely horrible. They should not work another game in the NCAA. Usually those guys are a little more leaning towards the middle of like, oh, they're not good, but oh, come on, North Carolina's blowing this, or they kind of stay on that line of being more neutral. But every single one of them saying that the refs were horrible and should not work another game. And if I know Hubert's a really nice guy, and he doesn't like to show his mean streak, but if he doesn't take this tape and rip it up and send it into the NCAA, the ACC, whoever it needs to send it to, like that's a disservice to the college basketball in my opinion, because again, that was just a disgrace. And again, not that North Carolina, like you guys said, didn't do their job in blowing the lead. And that's the thing is like Baylor was on a 9-0 run before the refs even made a bad call. Like right after Manick was ejected, they hit a three, got a steal, hit a three, got a steal, got a layup, whatever the sequence was. But like they were on a roll before the refs even called anything. And then for the refs to just add on to it, like you said you were calm, Gil. I was not. I was on the edge of my seat.
I wasn't calm. Don't get me wrong. I wasn't calm, but somehow, some way in the back of my mind, I thought we're going to win. Somehow, some way, particularly going into overtime, I was like, somehow, some way, I think we're going to win. With
that thinking, I was hopeful throughout the second half. Is like, is 25 enough? Like, can we burn enough time? Can we get through this to get the win? I was with you there. I was kind of still hopeful. When it went to overtime, I was like, if the refs keep calling like this, like obviously there's no way. And one other thing, again, I'll be quiet too because I've been going on for a while here. But the other thing I'll say is the announcers were horrible. Like they were not neutral, and even beyond that, they had no idea who had how many fouls.
Yes, they told us several times they
told us Bacot had 4.
What?
Right? They said Bacot's got 4. So the next time Bacot fouled, they said it, and everybody thought, oh, Bacot's out of the game. Come back from commercial, and Bacot's still in. They're like, oh, Bacot had 4. Has 4 now. They did the same thing with RJ Davis when the guy drives, and the worst part is they don't even say he's got 4. They say, oh, he's got 4, and they question his intelligence. Well, if you got 4 fouls, you can't be reaching in there. You got to let that guy have the rebound and all this. And then he doesn't have 4. He's still in the game. So he obviously has the intelligence to not foul when he's got 4 fouls. It was, it was getting me irate. Not only the rest, but the and I haven't even seen who the announcers were yet. I need to go look that up. But
I know we're winding up Blake here, but I legitimately feel like there were times that the officials were like over there contemplating, like,
what could they do?
How can we possibly give Baylor the ball here? Or wait, was it close enough where his toe was on the line where we can say that was a 2-pointer, not a 3-pointer?
Yeah.
Well,
at the end, like, wait a minute.
How about
that
5-second call.
They gave us the timeout the first time. The second one was nowhere close.
The quickest 5-second call ever.
3.5 seconds. And then even at the end of the game, it's like, wait, can we go back and call a foul here with Styles making some contact? No, okay, well let's put as much time on the clock as we can to maybe let them have more time. It was just like it started to feel like
when you say that though, that one that went out of bounds, they called it out on them, and it had gone off what Styles' hands or McCoy's hands, somebody, and then the Baylor guy. It was so obvious, and the ref is like right there looking at it. Is like even if you get that right in replay, you should be penalized for not seeing that live. because that was
I
so
almost
obvious.
thought I wasn't going to be surprised if they gave it to Baylor. I almost thought they were going to give it to Baylor, even though it was clear
Well,
as day that
it was just too
off of Baylor.
obvious, right?
Yeah.
All right, so Blake, we've like Gil said, we've probably wound you up here. Maybe we've said too much, and you don't got anything left. I don't know where you're going, but what do you got for us?
So I said on Twitter, after the game that I would be the first to admit that I didn't know if this team, or I should say maybe the individual parts of this team could come together in the way that they seem to have recently. And I'll cop to that 100% because, watching the first 25 games of the season, this did not look like a team that could play a team sport together very well. Numerous blowouts, inconsistent play. There were a number of times where it seemed like they didn't have the want to, the spirit, the tenacious, defense that we're seeing now, the grit. Somehow they have galvanized and come together in this way that they look like a team, a legitimate team, a team that can beat good teams. And that's something that we questioned many times throughout the season. They are passing the ball better to each other. Multiple players are getting multiple assists per game. Guys are stepping into different roles if their sort of normal role isn't working. RJ went 1 for 10 last game. Not good. The guy had 12 assists. That's the most assists in the NCAA tournament since Kendall Marshall had 14. So it's like he didn't come with nothing. So it's a bad shooting night. He's distributing the ball incredibly well. Did you guys notice Caleb Love's patience tonight? He had more patience. When he drove down, did he just push the ball? Even on three-pointers, did he just come down and just shoot a wide-open three? No, he actually pulled up, stopped, and waited for the rest of the team to get down there. I mean, he had some actual patience, a lot of basketball IQ tonight. It was a different, better. It was a better version of Caleb Love. I don't care if he didn't score as many points or not. He was playing smarter basketball. Did he still have some turnovers? Yes, but he was playing within himself. He was playing within the team, and he looked like he was part of the team, not just 4 guys and then Caleb Love chucking threes. And he doesn't have to have a perfect game for me to look at him and be like, look, I feel like we're seeing growth here. And so, let's see what his stats were. His stats for the game, they weren't great, and he fouled out, of course, so he had.
Well, I was going to say even the restraint for him not to be shooting. We've seen nights where he's off and he keeps shooting, but he still played 32 minutes tonight. 1 for 6 overall, 1 for 4 from the 3-point line, 3 rebounds,
2 assists. Now the 6 turnovers, obviously not good. But I think you can see what I'm saying in terms of like when he showed that restraint to not throw up a 3-pointer. When he had an opportunity to throw up one of those Caleb Love, hero balls, he didn't do it. Times when he could have pushed and gone 1-on-2, he didn't do it. And that to me, even on a night where he fouled out, where he had 6 turnovers. Oh, and I think that continues that stat because like every game that he's had 5 turnovers, the Tar Heels have won, which is, I want to stop that trend. I really do after today. But he showed something in a game that he wasn't particularly doing anything all that well. I think he showed growth, and I think that's a positive sign. And, Brady Manick, if there is any way to get that guy back for another year, like we should be throwing everything at it.
Yeah, we need to look through the NCAA rule book and see what kind of red shirt or transfer rule or something we can get in there just to get him next year. They would, yeah, you can't say enough. And even on that point, like just think of this if we would have lost this game.
Oh,
like how he would have. I mean, obviously everybody how they would have felt to blow that lead and stuff. But I mean, I don't know what you could compare that to. That would just
like
be
ending your career on a flagrant 2.
Yeah. And again, I think it was, I don't know if I want to say the right call. I think you can justify that as a flagrant 2, like you were saying, Blake, but I don't think it would have had to be either. So just even like on a questionable like that, like it could have gone either way. To end it like that is would have been horrible. So I feel like I was going to respond to something you said at the beginning there, but I totally forgot what you were saying. So I guess we'll move on here. We got a lot of people commenting here. Obviously, a lot about the refs. I've been trying to go through them a little bit, but one that keeps popping up here, I know Brian Carpenter had said it. And then I believe it comes up later here, and if I can find another one. Here's another one from Lori Mercer. Brian put in another one. So I guess I wasn't paying that much attention to, and for those that are listening, it's about I don't even know how to say this guy's last name. I know Gil wants to call him Cisco, but is it Sohan or is there another
Well, I need to
syllable
ask
I'm
Blake a
missing?
question because I saw Keeping It Heel make the Cisco reference tweet. That was the first time I saw it, and I laughed out loud. And then I later saw another guy say Cisco and Joe Dirt. So who said it first? Did you get it?
I don't. I mean,
Did you steal it from somebody, Blake?
not that I know of. No.
Okay,
When I
all
saw him, I immediately thought of two people. So I went with one. It was Cisco, and it was the like 3 years ago Kyle Kuzma, right? Where Kyle Kuzma had like the dyed,
I think you picked the right one.
and
Someone
but
else said
I
Dennis
didn't want to
Rodman
give
Jr.
him I didn't want to give him that much credit though. I didn't want to call him Kyle Kuzma because I feel like that would have been a compliment. So I went with the Thong Song guy.
If we're all showing our age right here too by saying that.
Right.
Someone else said
Because-
Rodman Jr., but I like Cisco the best.
No,
But
well, and
he
Rodman would be a complete compliment too.
He was dirty, and he was changing the way the game was played. He brought Carolina down that was Baylor's only chance.
He was an
Baylor's
instigator.
only chance to get back in that game was basically to get Brady Manick ejected, to get under Armando Bacot's skin,
Yes.
to foul out someone else on Carolina, to make the game as dirty, as scrappy as possible. And unfortunately, we played into that. But I mean, it should not be allowed that takes place.
Well, and to get to that point, because I feel like our guys get so sick of it. They talked about Bacot being frustrated by it,
I mean, he
but
pulled
it's like
Bacot
that
to
it
the
should not be
floor 4
allowed
times.
It should not be allowed to frustrate somebody like that. Like, it's one thing, people say they were frustrated by Tyler Hansborough and the way he played, but he was not trying to make you react to him. He was just playing so darn hard. This guy is doing stuff to try to make you react, and that should not be allowed. And eventually you're going to get I don't care who you are. You can be Mahatma Gandhi. You're going to react at some point. Like, a guy keeps doing that to you. And
he pulled
I think
Bacot
it was
to the court.
Yeah,
3
I think
times.
it was right after Bacot, and I don't get this either, how Bacot got 2 fouls out of that little skirmish there. And maybe they didn't. Maybe that's why the announcers were so mixed up. I don't even know at this point, because all we go off is what they tell us. But where he got tangled up, and they called the double foul. And then after the commercial break, they came back and said Bacot got another one, like a dead ball technical on top of that or something like that, which I didn't understand. But then he's standing over there by Bacot, and he's just kind of smirking at him. He's like, "Ha, I got you." Like, again, that's like going back to Creighton with the John Henson, Kendall Marshall stuff, where they're smirking and winking at, like, purposely being dirty to try to get you react, and I just can't stand for that stuff. So again, all the comments I've kind of put up is Sohan being Grayson Ellis or Grayson Allen vibes. He's garbage. He's dirty. I mean, is there any? Again, I didn't watch it before he started getting tangled up, but then it seemed like there's a trend, and I don't get how the refs don't catch on to that. But every time there's people on the ground, it's him and Bacot. It's him and Manick. It's like, how does that not, like, I played soccer through college, and you can get yellow cards because you're a repeat offender. You are the one that keeps getting the fouls. And so I don't get why there isn't some kind of repercussions that they can't take, or why they can't catch on to that. But he's always the one in the midst of these skirmishes with guys on the ground. And even that timeout he hooks RJ Davis's arm before he grabs the ball and calls a timeout and rolls RJ up. And I mean, luckily nothing happened to him, but again, it's just like, I don't know. What are you guys, where are your guys' level at with this Cisco dude?
It's funny that you mentioned the soccer and the yellow cards, because my wife said the same thing. We watch a lot of soccer, and we both grew up playing soccer, and she said the same exact thing. She was like, if this were a soccer match, he'd get a stern talking to from the refs and be shown a yellow card. You know what I mean? And he would have gotten 2, and he would have been ejected. And the fact that it went on for as long as it did was just extremely frustrating from Carolina's perspective. And it got under Armando's skin. And I feel like we've seen that all season, where players have been doing that to Armando, and he ends up on the ground. And unfortunately, like you said, at some point he ends up reacting. And I have no idea how you can get 2 fouls in the same play. I thought that was utter BS. And that's also when I got livid and pretty much had to clear out everyone else around me. It wasn't safe for work what was coming out of my mouth at that point. So, I know you don't like us referencing the other podcasts, but they do this one interview with the ACC head of officiating, Brian Kersey, every year, and I cannot stand that guy's viewpoints. I cannot agree less with that guy's viewpoints. This year, he talked about not having refs become full time and how that's like going to cost more money and yada yada yada. But no, the amount of popularity that college basketball is, the amount of money that goes into the March Madness, and it's getting distributed to all these schools and to the conferences. These guys need to be much better trained, much better at what they do. We should not be able to see this kind of performance from the
ref and held anymore. Accountable.
Yeah, and held accountable.
I mean, it seems like because they're not full time, like, oh, we can't, like, I don't get why you can't. I mean, I know they can be punished and they don't move on in the tournament, but why can they not be fined for a horrible game or, like,
that
suspended?
Was one of the things that I said on Twitter tonight was that the lack of accountability for referees is gross, because how often do they really go in and do an investigation or an inquiry? Not that often. And when they do, it's always a slap on the wrist. It's,
I was just say, it's probably a talking to.
Hardly ever are they like, oh, the officiating crew from the whatever game, has been suspended. I mean, it is very rare that happens. They almost always get a pass. It's rarely investigated. Nobody's going to, we could tweet 86,000 times to the ACC, to the NCAA, to whatever, and nobody's going to care. Right. And you're right, especially if you've got part-time employees that have got 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and the NCAA is like, well, what are we going to do? Like, there's a lack of accountability there. So you've got games like this that are poorly called. And guess what? Those guys went on to call another game, and they'll call other games. And it's at the most important time of the season.
Yeah, and I know people in the past have said, why are refs never available for like a press conference afterwards or for questioning afterwards?
Yeah, they should be.
I mean, even that, like, you're not getting fined. All you have to do is answer for what you did at your job. And then I think we would learn a lot of what guys say, like, well, I saw this, and it's either going to make sense or it's going to be completely opposite, and they're going to look like fools. And again, maybe something can come of it. But yeah, I don't know. I don't like to blame refs or have, people say, well, that's excuses, but this was just so blatant. It's I don't know. It just drove me crazy. And obviously it did a lot of other people, but there probably is other stuff that we need to move on to. I was going to ask you about the question I got up on the screen here. This JB2 says what bothered him about the manic ejection was the same ref that watched the Marquette player triangle choke Caleb. Now, I didn't see the Marquette game, so I wanted to ask you guys. I don't even know what that's referencing. And do you guys know? Do we have the same ref that we had against Marquette?
That was also a dirty play, and that player, I'm forgetting his name at the moment, for Marquette, was trying to do the same thing as Cisco Sochan or whatever, except he was trying to do it to Caleb Love. Do you remember that player's name, Blake?
No.
Marquette's second leading scorer. Yeah, it was a loose ball, and we dove on it, and he
was it Morcell?
Yes. And he definitely triangle chokehold Caleb and like pulled him. Like I said 100%. To my wife when it happened, like that could really hurt somebody's neck. You know what I mean?
And what was it called?
He's still in the game.
They called a foul or nothing?
It was one.
Yeah, flagrant
one.
Flagrant one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so again, they went to review it, and if it is the same ref, then that I get where you're coming from. Then JB is what I guess what I'm saying. But
under the so with having what I said about Manic, where I can see it could go either way, with that being the basis, like if that is the baseline, if that's a flagrant one, then Mannix should have been a flagrant one. So like I can stipulate that. In a vacuum, I think that Mannix could be a flagrant one or a flagrant two. But if you're constant, is okay, well, a flagrant one is choking somebody by the neck, then I don't see any way that Mannix was a flagrant two.
Yeah, that surprises me that we get the same refs. I get they're in the same location, but to have the same refs ref another game, it just, I don't know. Seems like, again, we could you can get too many bias of like, hey, I just, got used to this guy last night doing this, or, whatever it is. And I feel like even, again, I think Baylor should have been called for a lot more fouls, but I also think teams get the reputation of being a good defensive team, or a player gets the reputation of being a good defensive player, and then they get away with more than what they should have. And I don't know if that's the case with Meyer, like when he pushed Caleb Love over the half line, because I feel like he does have that reputation. I haven't seen a ton of Baylor, but I feel like I hear Meyer like, oh, he's this glue guy, he's this defensive guy, he kind of does everything. And I had somebody say like, oh, that was good defense. It wasn't a foul. I said, if that's good defense, no one's going to score on you because you can't get past somebody if they can do that to you. They can just shove you to the side like that. But again, we'll try to keep moving on. We got tons of comments, guys. We'd love to see this. We'd love to have you guys here with us live. I guess I'll throw it out there for anybody watching on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed. We go live pretty randomly. We try to do it at big moments, but we're pretty bad at that. So make sure you're subscribed. If you're listening to this later on the podcast, subscribe to whatever podcast app you use, and even come over to YouTube and join us live sometime. We'd love to have you guys. But
okay, so Dan, can I bring up a topic since I was relatively on time?
I was going to say where do we go next here? So this is perfect.
I want to get your guys' thoughts on two things. One, the reserves that were used tonight. I know we touched on it with Styles, their performance, and at the end of the game, there's an obvious deficit of ball handlers out there, right? Who did we never see? Did you ever see DeMarco Dunn?
Nope.
We've got Justin McCoy out there. We've got, Dontrez Styles out there. Armando Bacot is out there. With respect to all these players, like, probably could have used another ball handler. We were having a heck of a time breaking the press, right? Turnover after turnover. Never saw DeMarco Dunn. I don't know. I'm kind of just asking. I'm not really alluding to anything. I'm just saying, like, for me, I would have thought, I don't know, maybe we'll get a guy out there that, is kind of known for handling the ball a little bit. Maybe, he's got a little bit of skill with the ball in his hands. Never saw him.
Yeah, so I'll jump in and Gil, let you have a chance. I don't necessarily have an answer for you, but that's kind of where I wanted to go before. I wanted to respond to something you had said and I forgot. Is we were pretty, I think all of us were kind of critical about Hubert Davis earlier in the season. I will state that I don't believe any of us shouldn't be our coach. I don't think we ever got to that point like some Tar Heel fans did, but we were critical of him. And I know me and Gil were really critical of the lack of depth being developed early in the season and throughout the season and stuff like that. But Blake, you were kind of making the point earlier that I want to respond to was we went from a team that didn't look like we knew how to play together or even want to play together to a team now that has kind of figured it out. And again, I fully admit that Hubert Davis knows more about basketball, probably forgets more about basketball than I'll ever know, and all that stuff. But obviously he had a reason to play the short bench and to let these guys kind of figure it out together by playing them heavy minutes. And thankfully, we never had the foul trouble or the injuries and stuff that would have hurt us with the depth until tonight. And guys stepped up and he's been preaching, be ready. And when you get your opportunity, take advantage of that opportunity in the game so that you get more minutes in the game. And I think we kind of saw that tonight. And so, we were critical on Hubert Davis, so I wanted to make sure now we give him the due credit that he is deserved. And again, maybe it's just the natural progression, but obviously these guys now have our starting five. Puff was late getting into the season and stuff, so he doesn't have as many minutes logged with a lot of these guys. But our starting five has a lot of minutes logged playing together, and to where they came from the beginning of the season, where, like you said, they didn't look like they even wanted to play together. They could hardly pass each other the ball at some points, to where now they are as in sync as about any team in college basketball. If you take our starting five, there's not too many teams ahead of us, I think, that you would take with just the starting fives. And since our starting five plays a lot of the game, that means it puts us kind of up in that tier of teams if we can keep it going. But yeah, as far as seeing Dunn, obviously he hasn't seen a lot of minutes. You could see it that we were flustered with their zone. The way we were just kind of throwing that ball around. Styles got that one ball at midcourt, and it was like a hot potato. He was throwing it to Armando Bacot, who you don't want having the ball anyway around midcourt, but he was trying to throw it to Armando as quickly as he could, and the Baylor guy stepped in.
He should have gone with a bounce pass forward instead of.
Well, just hold the ball for like a second,
way.
And find somebody. But yeah, they were completely flustered. And I think you see that with the younger guys, obviously earlier. And so Baylor was doing a pretty good job of keeping it out of RJ Davis's hands, and probably would have fed it right to DeMarco Dunn and tried to get him to do again. maybe.
And I'm not saying it was the wrong call,
right?
But I'm saying
No, I
honestly,
know what you're saying.
between Justin McCoy and a guy that is a better ball handler, I don't know.
Right.
I feel like maybe I would have given it a shot.
Well, I was gonna say if I was in that case, I probably would. You give it a shot, and if he turns it over a couple of times, you say, "All right, it's not working. Let's go with something, with something else." I totally agree. I don't have the answer, but Gil, I'll give you the chance if you want to.
Yeah, just to chime in on that, 24, almost 25 huge minutes from Dontrez Styles in this game. Yes, Dan and I were critical of Hubert Davis all season long in terms of not playing the freshman and not building the depth. And of course, we all know that, two key rotational players unavailable at this point of the season. Thankfully, Styles, and I mentioned that at the, after summing up the ACC tournament, was that, what's going on with the rotation. We were seeing Styles as first off the bench, and now it's like Puff, and now it's back to Styles. And, Styles came up big in this game. He's clearly got the athleticism, which matched up well with Baylor. He's a great rebounder of the basketball and obviously hit a huge shot in overtime. And we really needed that because the team looked tentative. They looked scared. The guys were afraid to shoot there in the second half, contributing to a lack of flow offensively. Of course, not being down two of our starters was obviously played a big factor in that. And Puff Johnson, did just enough in limited minutes. And I agree. I was thinking, oh, we're going to see Dunn with Caleb Love out. Like, what else are we going to do? But instead, he goes to McCoy. It's tough to question at this point because McCoy hit two free throws to seal it. At that point, I think we had it, but he sealed it for sure. But he came in and played good defense. He got that one deflection that led to a turnover. He got a couple of rebounds, and he was up for the game. He was up for the moment. So, kudos to our bench for being ready, even though they haven't had a ton of opportunities throughout the season to really get themselves there. I guess they've had the bare minimum. So that's what I have to say about it. But yeah, I mean, obviously, as you said earlier, Blake, in the season, like they're just not ready, or he doesn't have the full faith or confidence in him at this point. So yeah,
and I mean that's fine. I'm not actually asserting that like DeMarco Dunn would have for sure been a better option. I'm just wondering. But I have to think that if Hubert Davis has a guard on the bench, and Caleb Love is fouled out, and you've only got really one ball handler on the court because Leakey was off the court at that point. If Dunn's not out there, I have to just assume he's not ready. And that's kind of what I argued against you guys earlier in the season. You wanted to see Dunn, you wanted Styles, you wanted every guy in the whole world to play. And I was like, look, like this is the guy that's practicing with these guys every single day. Okay. Like if he's got Cade Cunningham on the bench, he's probably not making him sit there just because he's a freshman. Like they're not ready. So I'm in no way like asserting that DeMarco Dunn. I mean, DeMarco Dunn could have got out there, got the ball, been nervous, dropped it, turned it over, whatever. I don't know. But I would lean toward that. I think that Hubert Davis has done a better job than people thought. I have been, and I'm glad I have been. I'm glad I can look back now after 35 games and say I've been incredibly patient with his first season. I have absolutely. There's been times where I've criticized and said like, okay, he got out coached, the second half of that game, or the guys were gassed and they had nothing left, But for the most part, I've sort of been the guy, not just on this podcast, but like in general, like especially on Twitter, where it's like, guys, yeah, he was there for the recruitment process, but these are not truly his players. This is his first season. Yeah, he was an assistant coach for 9 years. I get it, but he's in the big seat for the first time ever. People were wanting to fire him 10 games in. Like, you got to give the guy a chance. Like, you're going to know. And North Carolina fans, like so many other fan bases, Kentucky's and UCLA was for a while. They're getting back to that point. Kansas, Kentucky, Duke, spoiled fan bases, right? And you want it right now. So they don't want to hear like, hey, we'll know within 2 to 3 years. If he's not the right guy, we'll know in 2 to 3 years. No, like they want another championship within 2 to 3 years. They don't want to just find out that they've got Matt Doherty in 2 to 3 years, right? But here's the thing is like at one point, Roy Williams was in Hubert Davis's position. Okay. Like he wasn't always a 400-win coach. And then he was going to North Carolina. Like somebody gave him an opportunity to coach his first job too. And the funny thing, and this is what I love to point out to people, is that even Roy Williams, after having 400 wins at Kansas, a handful of Final Fours, he comes to North Carolina with a raw, if you will, and ungroomed set of talent that would go on to win the national title the following year, but he only went 19-11 and lost in the second round with that team. Okay, so if he had talent that all went to the NBA and won a national title the following year, but he went 19-11 with them, and somehow Hubert Davis with this team, who I think no one in their right mind would argue that this team is nowhere near as talented as Roy Williams' first team, right? And
Yes.
somehow Hubert has won 26 games and he's in the Sweet 16. Like, so you got to give him credit for it.
Yeah, in our defense of the reserves, I would say, if you give Styles the minutes, not even the minute, he had 25 minutes tonight out of necessity, but you give him, 10 minutes a game, and the production gradually grows. Tonight he's maybe more ready to step in and produce more, but again, like I said before, maybe that doesn't happen if other guys are getting those little bit of chunks of minutes, and even like those games where we said Brady Manick is like gassed, maybe that's what's gotten him ready now to play against Duke for 40 minutes straight, to play, again, tonight he didn't get to play all the minutes because he was ejected, but to play, deep into the game and still have his legs under him to shoot like he does, because we did see some games where it looked like he wasn't shooting because his legs weren't there. And the only way to kind of get that is to fight through that a few times. So again, I'm kind of done questioning him this season. I'm sure at some point he'll do something, and I'll question him again. But I won't.
I'll question him just a little bit, and I appreciate Clint's point here at the bottom. That might be a good point as to why we saw McCoy and Styles, who have a more developed, mature body to match up with Baylor's athleticism. So maybe that's the point. The only thing I'm going to question, and again, I've been a big proponent of Hubert throughout the season. While we're revisiting things from earlier in the season that we talked about, I remember saying, I believe this team can go and at least win 2 games in the NCAA tournament when things fall their way. And Blake questioned me hardcore in that moment. So just kind of reliving that.
100%.
Yeah, you said you said against real bodies, and I was like, I think they could do it, So
100%. And I think we had just taken the loss to Pittsburgh at that point, if I'm not mistaken, and looked like we were a golf team that was trying out for a basketball team. Like it was really bad, and I 100% own that. Like, if I went back today and I looked at that game, I would say, how in the world have they gone from this to this? And I think all the questions and doubts that we had at that point were deserved. I think those were all well earned. And but I think it also makes it that much more remarkable that they seem to be coming together and becoming what they are from where they were a month ago. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, it's all good. I thanks for owning that, and I'm glad to kind of that they proved me right. And again, Hubert coached really well today. The only thing that I would question is I would like to see when we have the ball with 11 seconds, 13 seconds, whatever left in the ball game, that we draw up something better than that. And I know that we had 2 starters out. And so, against Clemson, for example, Caleb Love took it to the basket, found a cutting Brady Manick, and that's a much better, higher percentage opportunity to win the basketball game. But we didn't seem to have, a sense of urgency in that particular play, and ended up hoisting up, a 3 with a tall defender on us. So I would much rather see a play going to the basket where you might get a foul, or you might get an opportunity to tip in a rebound, a miss. So that's the only thing I would question. But
having said that, okay, you put it in your hottest player's hands. The game is being called horribly. So
true. I did think about that.
Bear with me.
I did think about that. It could have been an offensive foul.
And he drives, and he's got 2 seconds left, and it's a charge, and then you're going the other way shooting free throws. Okay.
Well, they wouldn't shoot free throws, right?
Yes, in this particular game with this particular officiating crew, I thought about that, Blake. I did, but moving forward, hopefully with like some officials that actually understand basketball,
because by that point it was a double bonus, so they would have gone to the other end and shot free throws.
Well, player control fouls you don't.
Okay. I guess
charges,
maybe. Okay.
On charges you don't.
Yeah,
but
you're right.
But no,
either way, the way that he at least drew it up, did I love it? No. But did it make it so that it was like mistake-free basketball?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, the one thing I would say is that RJ waited about 3 seconds too long to go.
Yes.
You need to start moving that play about 10 seconds. You've got to put up a shot by like 5. And then once the shot caroms off the rim, you have a chance for an offensive rebound, but they don't have a chance to score. Yes. But, again, I'm not gonna insult a guy that had 30 points and a career high today and 12 assists the last game. He can whatever.
Well, and we don't know what Hubert said. He could have said like drive in there, and then RJ be like, I'm not getting that call. I'm not driving in there,
Right.
And obviously it was a pick and roll and see what Manic or what Baycott has off of that, and let's get a shot up and stuff. But yeah, the one thing I think we question, and that's probably more in RJ than in Hubert, is go a little bit sooner and try to get. But we don't know what's being said there. So the other thing I was going to say about McCoy earlier is I believe the kind of the first time he came in, at least in the second half, he came in when Mondo picked up his fourth foul, and so obviously you're not putting Dunn in there when Baycott's coming out because you need the muscle.
Well, sure. And honestly,
and so
I wasn't arguing
maybe
for Dunn to get a bunch of minutes. I'm only
right,
talking about situational basketball.
Right.
You can't
but
get
I'm
the
just
ball
saying,
in.
Maybe because McCoy has been in and had the minutes, he's at least kind of been in there. Maybe that's why you go back. I agree. Again, I don't know why. But so John says he did agree with the announcers where Leaky stay out of the sideline corners. You always stay out of there. But I would say, like, again, the way it's being officiated, where is he going to go? Because they can push him wherever they want him to go. And so they're pushing, he brought it up over half to not get the 10-second call, but then he's got two guys coming at him. So he dribbles down the sideline. But if he starts going in, they're going to call a charge. Like, he's got nowhere to go except to the corner. And at least he went to throw it off their legs.
It was impossible for Carolina in those last 10 minutes. When the other team is allowed to get away with fouls, you can't play offense.
Exactly. That's what I said.
There's
like,
nothing they could do.
If that's good defense, then you can't score because you can't get past guys when they can ride you like that and bump you and push you to certain spots and no fouls being called. But again, we're getting back into that stuff. Anybody got anything else? I'm kind of going through. Again, these comments are amazing. I'm just way behind. They're kind of coming in and kind of catching up to what we were talking about before.
If we can regroup like the team did going into overtime with like pretty much hardly anybody believing in them at that point and find a way, defensively, they did whatever they had to do, holding Baylor to
Missing
1 for 11
and 2 starters with 4 fouls.
Yeah. I was like, oh my God, please do not let Armando foul out of this game, because I don't know how we will win if that's the case. But they got the job done, and like I know they are celebrating hardcore, on that trip back home.
Would Roy have taken this group to the Sweet 16? I don't know. We'll never know.
Yeah, that's hard to know because you don't know how guys respond. Obviously, they were excited for Hubert.
Would Roy have gotten Brady Manick?
No.
I'm also like I'm like the world's biggest proponent of Roy Williams ever, so I'd never say anything negative. Like if I
don't think we go after Brady Manick. I don't know, because it doesn't sound like Manick was looking at us. It was more that Hubert reached out to him.
But man, I love that guy, and I'm glad we got him. So what about talking about who they got next, which is UCLA, right?
Yeah, we definitely probably need to get to that. So we play Friday. I don't think the time will be announced until after tomorrow's games because some of those are split between Thursday and Friday as well. But we do have that it's played Friday. We'll play UCLA, so we'll be the underdog, I guess, as far as seed-wise goes. They're the UCLA, the 5 seed or the 4 seed?
4.
They're the 4. St. Mary's was the 5, yeah.
So yeah, I'll throw it out there.
I think we may be North Carolina may be the Vegas favorite though. After the first weekend, I wouldn't be surprised if they were like a 1-point favorite or.
I'd say it's got to be close to a pick 'em either way.
I think it'll be close to even, but I wouldn't be surprised after the way they put up points. It's a totally different style of play. Like, North Carolina which is insane to say this because the last 2 seasons has developed back into a 3-point shooting team. They are a good free throw shooting team, although today you wouldn't have thought so. They're a team that plays well inside out, where the sort of bread and butter of North Carolina used to be like dominating big guys inside, and they might kick it out to like their one like sharpshooter, like their Ellington or their Danny Green or their whatever, but now they've got literally multiple guys that can shoot all over the perimeter. Like, when's the last time that North Carolina had? Really, Caleb Love is a streaky shooter, but he can shoot from the outside. RJ Davis can shoot from the outside. Brady Manick can shoot from the outside. This is the first season, I believe, in the history of North Carolina basketball that 3 players have had 60 or more 3-pointers in the same season. So that speaks to what they've done this season and the versatility of having guys that can go inside like Brady Manick, but can also step out, bring a defender out, spread the court out, and knock down shots. And I think that's really important. But UCLA is really not that team. UCLA plays a lot of isolation and has a lot of mid-range game to their sort of scheme. And, for them, I think if the shots are falling, it looks really good. If UCLA comes out and they're cold, and the North Carolina team that comes out and can shoot from the perimeter comes out, it's a very winnable game.
Gil, you want to go next?
Yeah, the thing I want to say about it, I haven't watched UCLA enough, but for me, I was saying this at the end of the season. It blew my mind that, a second place or third place team in the SEC with over 20 wins, 25-6 or whatever we were, to just be on the bubble was ridiculous. And, clearly now see the talent of this particular, but, this Carolina team they were underseeded and he was overlooked, but the AC started off with only one loss in the round of 64. Notre Dame even coming out of the first four. So ACC undervalued, this Carolina team undervalued. Someone who just had a comment saying this team is not soft anymore. They're battle tested. I do think that they're mentally tough. Someone else commented saying that they think Hubert Davis is a good motivator. And I agree. I did see Jeff Lebo drawing up plays there on the sideline. So I think that's empowering too, to see a coach letting the assistant coach do some of the X's and O's there. So, this whole team had to mesh together, including coaching staff. You got new people in new places. You got Jackie Manuel and you got others coming into the mix. So this team has really grown a lot. I think all of us in Tar Heel Nation are just loving the product that we're seeing at this point in the season. So go Heels. I think we match up well if we're playing well, as we did here in the first two games of the tournament, to make an even deeper run. So, they're going to get home. They're going to get a couple days of rest, regroup, refocus. The next game is in Philadelphia, so that's a much shorter travel for them. That may bode well for us. I'm not sure where UCLA was in their games, maybe Portland. So, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can say UCLA is scarier than playing Baylor, but I don't know. I was trying to decide who I wanted to see between St. Mary's and UCLA when they were playing today. It seems like obviously we know UCLA has the talent and can execute. I mean, this is the same team that went to the Final Four last year, and I don't think they lost anybody. I think they added a couple of decent freshmen at least. I guess the one thing that worries me is what Blake said is they're more mid-range. They are like Johnny is good at pulling up mid-range. And so Baycott's going to have
Campbell and all
less
guys,
effect inside because they're pulling, if they do get past one guy, they're not necessarily going to the rim to be challenged. They're pulling up mid-range and you don't see that much anymore. And again, they're good shooters. They obviously went on a run last year. The way they're playing this year, again, I don't think it's as scary as Baylor to me. I'll be honest, in my bracket, I picked Baylor to win. Obviously, I was cheering for North Carolina to bust my bracket there, but I'll take it. And to me, it's like you can't get too optimistic and say, "Oh, we're in the Elite Eight" by any means. We're still a lower ranked team. We'll see what Vegas does with the line, but. And I don't think you can get past saying we have to see what North Carolina team shows up. We said early in this podcast, like we've strung a couple together, but we've seen all year
and that goes for any team, right?
Gonzaga
hasn't looked good, right? Gonzaga's down 10.5 right now.
They're down. I was just going to say
Gonzaga hasn't looked good. You can say any time, any given Sunday works for anybody, but it especially works for a team where we talked about, like, this team hasn't been consistent. Now, are they peaking at the right time? We think so. When I think we'll know? If they come out and just smoke UCLA, I think we can come on here and say, okay, they've arrived. They're here. All right. This could be a really good thing type thing. But I want to see it one more time because honestly, I'm giving them a pass for that 25-point, just dismantling, coming apart, because the Manic thing, you can argue. You could argue that, right? You can argue that Caleb Love was getting some ticky-tack fouls when Baylor wasn't getting fouls. You can see how that lead would crumble with one of your primary ball handlers no longer on the court. I mean, honestly, take the primary ball handler off of any one of 10, 15, 20 top teams in the nation and see how they perform. Okay? They look completely different. Okay, so a lot of things happen. So I'm not saying that North Carolina was mistake-free in the second half. They weren't. But a lot of things happened that definitely didn't go their way. And in another game, you have to think that many things can't go wrong. The officiating crew can't be that bad that Brady Manek's not going to throw like a wild elbow. But if they can do it again, I think you're talking about a team that is truly peaking at the right time. I think sometimes they use that too much, but this team looks really good right now.
Yeah, and I think it was Coach Smith that kind of started it, but kind of looked at it as 3 mini tournaments. And so we've won the first tournament, we won the first weekend, and it's you talk about momentum at the right time. Now it's almost like we have to build or at least gain that momentum again in the second weekend. We can't just expect the second weekend like we're going to go in there and do the same thing. It's almost like we got to build that momentum again. And like, yeah, if we do come out against UCLA and handle them easily or even just kind of comfortably, if we have 8, 9, 11 point win, I think then we have to kind of obviously we want to expect it, but almost have to expect it. It's going to come again against Purdue. Well, again, I'm putting Purdue up there. I'm just looking at the highest seed. We don't know, but to me that would almost be great. I mean, we lost by 9 to Purdue when we weren't necessarily playing good and on a neutral court, all that stuff. And that's when they were probably playing better basketball than they are now. So, again, then I think that gives us a lot of confidence going into that game if it's Purdue.
Or maybe Texas wins and then North Carolina's playing Texas. We know
we're not. Yeah, I was gonna say we don't know how that's going to win, but Shaka Smart's not there anymore.
Well, and Hubert Davis has apparently broken the Shaka Smart curse. So maybe he's ready to break the Texas curse. You know what? So honestly, when Texas and Purdue play, I'm going to root for Texas to win because I think that Hubert Davis and this North Carolina team can beat that Texas Longhorns team. Purdue is a better team than Texas. And I don't necessarily need to see a rematch just because, they only lost by 9. I think they could beat Purdue. But I think if I was going to do, the best out of 7, I think I'd take my chances with Texas sooner than I would Purdue in terms of who I want to play. And here's the thing too. If you look at that, and don't underestimate anybody, but then the bottom of that bracket, the game that North Carolina would potentially be playing, so let's say that Texas and Purdue don't advance. Let's say that there's another upset. St. Peter's and Murray State. We've seen this tournament play out a million times. Do we think that Purdue's the one that moves forward? Sure. If they don't, do we assume it's Texas? Yeah. But I mean, what about Loyola Chicago? What about VCU? What about all those other teams? Who's to say that North Carolina doesn't have an Elite 8 matchup with Murray State?
Well,
I'll say that they don't have a matchup with Murray State.
Peters or whoever.
Murray State just lost by 10 to St. Peter's.
So St. Peter's then, sorry, yeah. So, I mean, do we assume that's going to happen? Probably not. But did we think that Kentucky was going to lose to a 15? My point in all that is that, in theory, this bracket has gotten easier.
For sure.
You started off, you're like, man, there's Kentucky, there's UCLA, St. Mary's, Baylor. Okay, well, I mean, St. Mary's is a team that if they get hot shooting, Gonzaga saw what happens when St. Mary's gets hot. They fell to them. They're gone. UCLA doesn't look untouchable. Baylor's gone. Kentucky's gone. Purdue's got 2 more games before they even get to the point where they'd be playing North Carolina. Who's to say they're going to get that far? They haven't been perfect. They've got a couple of bad losses this season.
Yeah. They've been playing a lot worse than that they were early in the season when everybody thought they was going to win the national championship.
Yep.
So do you guys want to talk about who's not going to come back next season? Can we just quickly touch on who's not going to come back?
That's an off-season pod right there.
I just want to see the first. I just want to see the first name that you guys say.
I know who you're thinking, and it's
Brady Manek.
Here's my parting shot. I don't think we've said it yet on this podcast, even though we've gone an hour. We just beat the defending national champions. We just eliminated the defending national champions, the 1 seed in the second round of the NCAA tournament. That's hot. I'm loving it. It was a crazy game. One of the most memorable games of recent memory, that's for darn sure, in the NCAA tournament for this team. So I want to ride that high. That's how I'm going to go out. I'm not going to answer that question from Blake just yet, but I know who he's thinking about.
When I was to say, they showed, or somebody, I saw the graphic, is the defending champion has gone out in the first weekend, the last 3 or 4 tournaments. And I believe UNC was on there, but was that not Joel Berry's senior year? Wasn't it the Sweet 16 that we went out against Texas A&M, or was it the second round?
I think that was the round of 32.
Was it?
But at this point, we were kind of looking ahead a little bit. But why not us? Why not this team? Who's to say they can't continue to play really good basketball?
One thing I would say, you talk about them, you think they were underseeded. I don't know that your argument is with the seeding as it is with the system. Okay. Based on the metric at hand, they weren't underseeded. Like, if you have a problem with it, you have a problem with the net, which I think that's a fair argument. But based on what they're making the decisions off of, I wouldn't say that they were underseeded at all. I think you can make an argument that they were overseeded. Now, I'm not saying that they were, but based on the net, I mean, they had terrible losses. They didn't beat anybody good except for Duke. But I think that goes to show that and I hate the fact that Michigan's winning, because then people are going to be like, well, see, they really were good, so whatever. But I like, that they deserve to be in. And that's why the net is so important. No, like, I really don't think that Michigan deserved to be in. Now that they're in, somehow they're winning games. But there's this weird,
Syracuse does that every year.
There's this weird thing that happens. And I saw somebody on Twitter say this, and they were like, I bet on Michigan because every single year, the team that everybody hates and doesn't want to be in somehow wins at least 2 games.
Yeah, usually it's Syracuse.
And having said that, I still don't think that Michigan really deserved to be in. Now, does Michigan have the capability to be a good team? Yeah. But that's kind of like, getting good grades on all your homework and then you get to the test and you fail. Like, okay, well, I'm just a bad test taker. No, you're just, you're dumb. Okay, if you go the entire year, if you go the entire year and you don't prove, anything the whole time, I'm not going to even give you an opportunity to, pass the class just because you took the test and did well. And same thing the other way around. Like, you can do good the whole year long, but if you are awful, at the test in the postseason, like, people are going to give Rick Barnes absolute hell, because he's again taken a high seeded team and then lost. And I don't think it's necessarily fair because he's not the one that went like 2 for 18 from 3.
And Coach Cal is getting a little bit for having the worst season last year and then going out in the first round this year. So
yeah.
So
well, the good thing is nobody will talk bad about Coach K, even if they got blasted in the second round. Nobody would talk bad about Coach K. They would just say that it was like, bad luck or something.
So here's your answers. John B says Walton is gone.
Oh, we got answers. Oh,
Brian Carpenter says Baycott, Manic, and Love are all
that's scary.
Gone. Okay. Marcus Snyder says if they go all the way, Baycott, Love, Davis, and Manic, Drafts got shot way up. He didn't say, say they're gone.
Okay.
And then he also added Walton may transfer. Let's see here.
Brian unloaded the whole team.
Brian says, I hope Leaky returns.
Right now, Leaky better be able to play 5 positions because Brian's gotten rid of everybody.
Marcus Snyder says Leaky is the leader of this team. All right, I didn't answer that one, but
I think he's a soft-spoken leader of this team.
I think he is what gels it together.
Yeah,
I do.
And I think somebody, I think it was an announcer even, I don't remember where I heard it, but they said Manic is kind of the vocal leader out there now. And I think that's happened throughout the season here where he's gotten a little more comfortable. Obviously his role, he's kind of find his spot, but I don't know, maybe he's like got ticked off as like, hey, I don't want this to end and we'll do whatever now. But if he's really the vocal leader out there, that
the team chemistry that was sour in the middle of the season, or there was really a lack of team chemistry, has changed dramatically. And I do think that Brady Manic has been a huge catalyst to that. Now, I'm not there behind the scenes, but I think that his personality has just started to rub off, and they're playing much more unselfish basketball, as Blake alluded to earlier in the podcast, talking about the number of assists. The ball's just moving better. We're looking to find guys that are open to get them good shots versus, looking for our own. So, I mean, that is a welcome sight, and it's coming at the right time. Let's hope it continues.
I'm glad I started all this unnecessary speculation about who's going to stay. See, Dan, they want to talk about
Caleb Love's got one more year. He's going after his
junior. You guys got to stop feeding Blake's ego out there.
Seriously.
I just you know what? I'm just going to start saying things just to get the comments coming in.
Well, and I'll say I wanted to say one thing too when we're looking forward to UCLA game, and I won't take credit. Someone was kind of saying this, but like, what is Brady Manic going to come out like? I mean, is he going to be so fired up that he missed that game that he's like almost too wired and he's off, or does he come in just proving a point and he goes off for 40, 50 point? Like, I feel like he's mature enough to where he kind of lets the game come to him. He's going to take his shots and he'll be fine. But
He's going to go for 50. Like you've turned him into LeBron James overnight.
I mean, the way he shoots, though, like, when's the last time he took a shot and you thought, like, oh, crap, that's way off, or, oh, no, that's not
Yeah, I
going
mean,
in?
it's been a while. Yeah, he was going for a 30 burger tonight for sure. Like, it wasn't even close. Like 40 was within range the way he was shooting. And the fact that he was getting open was, I have no idea. Like, Baylor was struggling to close out on him. And, like, it was the fact that he was even getting open at 26 points and there was 10 minutes left in the game and he was still getting open shots. It was unreal.
I think it's because Hubert's offense is perfect for Manek. I mean, there's 9 plays to get Manek open. I mean, I keep thinking, how is Manek open? You know, even Scott Drew about before the go, he can't hide. He can grow a beard and long hair, but I know him from he's at Oklahoma. I've seen him plenty, but even still, Manek's getting open and getting great looks. And I think that's a contribution of the offense that Hubert Davis has set up, the plays that are called, and the team's willingness to share the basketball at this point.
All right, guys, you heard it. Okay, so let's see it in the messages here. Gil is now backing up Hubert Davis. Are we going to let him off the hook for giving Hubert Davis such a hard time earlier in the season? Are we going to let him off the hook, or are we going to hold him to it? I want to see it in the comments. Yes, we let him off the hook because he's a good guy, or no, we axe him and he's gone the next podcast. What are we going to do, guys?
Hey, Marcus Snyder's right there with me. He said Manek was on pace for 49 tonight. So
what are we basing this off of?
The fact just that for fun. I just want to see if I can just implode this entire podcast.
So the fact that I was defending him against all the people that were ludicrously suggesting for his job.
No, see, I heard that you were the one that started the hashtag Fire Hubert. Isn't that true?
Yeah, that sounds a lot like me.
All right, so this is early voting here. They're rolling in. We got a yes.
Okay, so is that a yes that we're gonna?
I don't remember how you said it again. I think it was yes. You're letting them off the hook, but we'll have to go back. And then Brian says keep Gil.
So. Oh well, Brian likes you. Okay.
All right, Gil ran the podcast a week ago.
He did. Yeah, he did.
And he did a great job.
Okay, well now we're just really greasing the wheels here.
Yeah, before Gil, he's got to go to bed anyway. It's past his bedtime. But before he gets too puffed up here,
yeah, he's going to be on adrenaline high.
We also need to hurry because there's 27 seconds left, and Arkansas is only up 5. So I need to go watch the end of that one. Other live update is it's still halftime as Memphis leads Gonzaga by 10. I'm going to definitely watch the end of that game. So
there's been some low-scoring games. This Arkansas game, only they have 48-43. There's been some really low-scoring games.
Drop guy that didn't pick UNC. Hey, that's Dan.
That's me. Hey, I picked him to win the first game, just not this one.
He picked Baylor. Yeah,
I picked Carolina.
Guy.
Maybe that's the good luck.
Gas cards. Gil killed.
Appreciate the love out there. Appreciate the love.
Okay, come on. This guy's got cats. Let's not build him up too much.
All right, here. This I'm not going to even click on any more comments. We'll leave it on this one. It works because we're a team, guys.
We're sharing the rock.
We're gelling at the right time here.
Yeah, well, it's like a 12-assist game when you're talking about us.
I think this is definitely by far. I don't even know.
We've gone into overtime.
The previous long was, but this is our longest podcast.
Yeah, we've logged a lot of minutes and we're all gassed completely.
But we definitely appreciate everybody being here live. You guys were awesome. I wasn't even close to keeping up. Sorry that if I didn't get to your comment. Tried to flash as many of them up there on the screen as I could, but like I said before, if you're not subscribed on YouTube, go over there so you get the notification when we go live and come join us. Hopefully it's after another huge, maybe we won't use epic this time, but another huge UNC victory in the NCAA tournament.
I have one last thing.
Make sure you're subscribed on your podcast app.
Dan, I have one last thing.
Yep, I got you, Gil.
Make sure that you do whatever you were doing for these last couple games. Keep it rolling.
Yeah, and we're not going to go there. All right, so Clint says we did a good job.
Brought to you by Jose Cuervo.
I do appreciate you guys for always joining. Gil, we appreciate you staying up this late to go through this marathon with us. But yeah, again, I'd probably say this almost every time, but we've run the gamut here. There's not much more to be said. Tar Heels play again next Friday against UCLA. Time to be determined yet, but hopefully we're playing on Sunday as well for a chance to go to the Final Four. When's the last time you thought that was going to be a possibility? So, thank you, Gil. Thank you, Blake. And until next time. Go Heels.